François Bayrou is due to testify before a parliamentary committee today. He will be responding to questions following claims of sexual abuse at a Catholic school in southwestern France back in the 90s. This while he was the French education minister. Bayrou is expected to be questioned on what he knew about alleged violence and sexual assault at the facility. While the 73-year-old has denied any wrongdoing, his wife taught there and his own daughter has accused the clergy of abuse. For more on this story, we can bring in France 24's Solange Mougin, who joins me in the studio. Solange, great to see you. This is a big day for the French Prime Minister, isn't it?
It is. It may be make or break time for the French Prime Minister, depending upon how his testimony is received, if people feel that he has perjured himself or not before this committee. Now, already for months, many of his critics wonder how the 73-year-old, with his shifting testimonies, has survived this long as Prime Minister, considering the damage that the scandal has done to his credibility. So I'm going to break down the broad lines of this scandal, how it became a political hot potato for Bayrou, and then I'll go into how this one private Catholic school is part of a broader questioning in France about the place, the overview, and the financing by the state of private Catholic schools. And finally, since this is about abuse of children, I'll dive into how the French feel about, more broadly rather, about physical punishment of children, or la fessée, or spanking a child for misbehavior. But first, Betaram. Now, what is Notre-Dame de Betaram? It is the name of the Catholic school in the southwest of France. Betaram means beautiful branch in the local Béarnais dialect. And the school was actually renamed, the French translation of Beau Rameau, in 2009 to try and move away from this association with so much sexual and physical abuse. All of this came to light, at least on this massive scale, with an alumni Facebook group. It opened the floodgates of testimonies, and since then, some 200 legal complaints have been filed since last year, claiming that priests and staff physically and sexually abused children, and that there was, they say, a reign of terror at the school.
I was lucky to have had a bad reaction to it, to have known to push the priest rather violently, to put an end to his thinking I was the ideal victim. There was so much silence, a silence that we weren't allowed to break. When I arrived here, I was a normal child. I left a violent one.
So, Solange, what did François Bayrou have to do with the school exactly?
Well, he's involved on multiple levels. Not only did many of his 6 children go there, his daughter has since come forward saying that she was beaten at the school's summer camp. Bayrou's wife, as you mentioned, taught catechism at the school. And then there's the political level. There's the political involvement. He was and is a local political giant in this Pyrenees region. And he was education minister, as well as having other regional functions during the time when some of this abuse occurred. Which leads to the question of why didn't he stop it if he knew? And worse, did he keep things silent for the sake of the school's reputation? Or was he in denial, like many people say they were? In February, as a judicial inquiry was launched, Bayrou said that he had never heard of the sexual abuse, something that he reaffirmed to Parliament. However, testimonies and journalistic investigations have said otherwise, that Bayrou not only knew, but they say that he also spoke to a judge about the arrest of a priest who was later released, much to the anger and shock of the gendarmes, the police officers at the time.
The Attorney General asked to see the case file and immediately tells me there has been an intervention from Mr. Bayrou. It was very surprising that a rapist was released, because at the time that was not at all standard practice.
Now, despite multiple witnesses saying that Bayrou was told of the abuse, including a former whistleblowing math teacher, former police officer, one of whom we just heard from there, a judge, and even his own daughter said that he knew. The Prime Minister was adamant that last month that he did not intervene or hush up a scandal.
Not once, ever in my life, in all my time in politics, have I intervened in a legal case. Never. I don't know if the judges and police are lying, but you know they can get things wrong, just like anyone else.
Now, Solange, Bayrou's testimony is highly anticipated later on today, but the parliamentary committee that is looking into this is doing more than just questioning the Prime Minister, aren't they?
Yeah, the committee that Bayrou is testifying before is not per se investigating just Betaram or just Bayrou himself. Although Bayrou does claim that the scandal has turned into an attempt to make him fall, he says that. But the MPs leading it, who come from very different political wings, they say it is about a bigger picture of potential failures of the state in stopping the violence that occurred, things that like the violence that occurred at Betaram and at other schools. With the floodgates of testimonies coming from Betaram, the committee was formed to reopen this question, as another committee had for another prestigious school, this one in Paris, Stanislas. And also, multiple teachers in private schools have come forward saying it is harder to report abuse in private Catholic schools because there is a risk to the establishment's reputation, but also potentially to their careers. So in recent years, MPs have been digging into why there was so little to no oversight and inspections in many of these private schools where abuse was occurring. Now, all of this quickly also evokes the role of private versus public, the debate over private and public schools in France, with a general view by many French people that private schools may be better and that they may be for the elite. Now, the word private here is a bit of a misnomer because private schools in France, they are generally sous contrat, and this means that they receive most of their funding from the state, or some 73% of their funding. In exchange, the schools follow the established curriculum. France's over 7,000 Catholic schools generally fall into this category. So to use the words of the current education minister, this is a Me Too moment for these sous contrat schools, particularly Catholic schools. And Elisabeth Borne has vowed to up inspections of them. And Catholic schools also have launched a campaign for people to speak out about the abuse that may have occurred.
So let's talk us through corporal punishment here in this case, because many of the victims of this Betaram school say it was not just their parents, but also educators who said a little bit of spanking won't do so much harm.
Yeah, and over recent years, there has been this massive shift in France, but also in other countries, about parenting and about things like spanking. They have gone out of fashion. But many of the victims of Betaram say that there was this collective belief in that such discipline was good for them. It's important to draw a distinction here. With Betaram, we're talking about rape, ruptured eardrums from slaps, very heavy-duty corporal punishment. But nonetheless, if we talk about what most people in France today and feel, and those of a certain age in France, you will hear stories of ears being pulled by a teacher or being hit on the fingers with a ruler at school, but also at home. Some 24% of French people surveyed last year by the Foundation of Childhood said that les fessées, or spankings, they give them to their children today. Now, what's interesting here is that the law is pretty clear on this, even if it isn't always applied. In schools, it was banned in 1887 by Jules Ferry. I note this because in practice, that really wasn't the case. And it really is only in recent decades that such punishments in schools, at least, have mostly ceased. Even if, and we are discovering this with the horrors of Betaram, such mentalities of things like spanking, but also much, much worse, well, they continued for way too long and often under a very thick veil of silence.
Yeah, it's good that finally this culture of silence is starting to break. Thank you very much for that, Solange Moujandin.